No sound. Okay. Is the sound working now? Might have to start again. Okay, guys, I stopped the stream and then I started again just because it wasn't working. Sorry, that was my fault. I had my audio interface. Connected. And one good thing to remember, I can't do that. So you guys hear me okay now? Okay, everybody says you can hear me. Sweet. Sorry about that. Anyway. Okay, I'll start over. I was just saying that this week I did some stuff where I brought home some amps and the UA aux, and I have a reactive load here too. And so I was just showing you guys that I have my. I just decided I'd experiment with getting some work done at home. So I brought home a RSA 31 back there and a PT 100 and some different guitars, and I've got my pedal board down there. You know, you can see it's like hooked up right there. It's hooked up 4-cable method to the PT in the loop. And there's the aux and all that. So I'm just recording some stuff at home. Just get some work done. It's real quiet here and just different environment. So just gonna do some work here. Anyway, we got 169 people online. 169 people remembered that it's daylight savings. And we lost an hour. Went to see Big Wreck last night, which was exceptional. It was, I think, the last show of their tour at the Roxy in LA, and it was awesome. And Ian played wonderfully. The sound was really good. Sounded great. And the playing was so good. How that guy sings and plays like that, he's really one of a kind, you know? Thornley. He's like, there's nobody that can play guitar and sing like that and write like that too. There's nobody. Really is one of a kind. I mean, his voice is so strong and perfect, you know? I mean, who can sing rock with that kind of power and range and then bust out a guitar solo like he does? Absolutely no one. He's one of a kind. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go down and get in some questions here. Mark is from Banff. I love that place. Man, I would love to go to Banff. And Mark says hi from Banff. I'd love to go and have a vacation there again one of these days. Beautiful place. Nobody's ever been to Banff. You should go check it out. And we've got Michael from Poland. That's awesome. Poland. So far away. I've only been to Poland once. No, maybe twice. Yeah, it's been a long time. But I was in Poland the night that Michael Jackson passed away. I remember that. I just gotten off stage from a gig and then I heard that Michael Jackson had died. Okay, guitar questions. Typical Canadian, always apologizing, says it says Nicholas. Yes, that's absolutely true. Sorry. Terry says that he's using my amp, I assume the PT100, at church. They make me stick the cab in a box in back, and 100% of the band is coming through in-ears, which you hate. Advice on using in-ears, or on using, in-ear monitors. Struggle with dynamics. It's hard. In-ears is hard. It sucks. You got the scratchy guitar sound that's very direct coming in here with no feeling coming at all through your body, you know, like we're used to hearing make the pants flap with the amp behind you. And so when that gets eliminated, it just sucks. It's like, so some of the things that I do to kind of make it more fun are try and do a stereo thing for sure. Like try and somehow get some, so if there's a way that you could use 2 amps and do like, that's what I do, I use the return of the second amp for a power amp, and then I have my effects in stereo, you know, things like that. You could even use a load box on your amp, because why use a cab if the cab's isolated anyway? It's pointless at that point, I think. So you could do something like, you could use a load box and take the line out of the load box, let's say just for lack of, like either the UA aux or like a torpedo live, right? We'll take the load off the amp, load it down to line level, add some speaker simulation, then you can take the line out of something like the live, and then you can run into some stereo effects like a reverb or you can take a delay, for instance, and set one side to 35 milliseconds and the other side to 45 milliseconds with only one repeat, and then you just blend it underneath your guitar sound. That makes it split and go a bit wider, and it sounds way more fun in in-ears. And then you could send that stereo line out to a DI and send that to the, that's what'll go to the house and also to go into your in-ears. So there's ideas like that. Basically, I think anything you can do to kind of make it sort of more fun in the in-ears and stereo is that for me. It's that part of it is the mono pinpointed thing. Like, that just sucks, It's like not fun to play with. Another thing you might experiment with doing is getting a powered monitor and just have it at a nice low volume, and maybe you can play like that. Like for instance, I have these atomic wedges made by Atomic. It's called the CLM or something like that, CLR, full range, and they sound so good. And you could literally get a line from the PA, from the sound guy or whatever, and just run it into the Atomic wedge, and then just blend it. It'd be the same line that's going to your in-ears, and just blend that in, so that you've got a little bit of live sound coming through that wedge. It'd be nice, as long as the rest of the band's quiet, it might work, Okay, and move down a little bit further here. Hopefully those are some good suggestions. Some ambience in the in-ears, any way you can get to stereo, and then maybe try and use a low volume, full range monitor would be my suggestions. And Jason's asking if I got to see Big Wreck last night at Roxy. Yes, so great. So many pedals have become classics and are useful for decades. Do I think any of the digital stuff will have a long, useful lifespan, or will it always be replaced by something better? It's a really good point. Like pods and stuff, it always seems like it's like computers, where then you upgrade to the next one and then the next one. And it does feel a little bit like that, doesn't it? Where it's like with things like pods and stuff, like, oh, I would never use the original pod. Why? There's the Helix now or whatever. That's like the tone's always going to get better. I don't know. I mean, like manufacturers are in the business of selling you stuff, and they want to always make the next, make a better mousetrap or whatever, and then sell you that, and somehow tell you the old one wasn't as good. But if it sounds good, it is good, It's like think about a guy like Ty Tabor from King's X. He got his tones out of a L5, one of those, is that what it's called? Lab amp. Lab series. It was a solid state amp, and his effect was a quadriverb, a Lisa's quadriverb, which he used to use on a lot of stuff, and that was his like chorus sound, and I guess his delay, and he used to use a short kind of delay for solos that had this amazing sound. And it was a quadriverb, it was like 16-bit reverb, so I don't know. Some things, maybe the Kemper sure seems to have lasted a long time. Like, it's been out now for a long, long time, and it's not like they've updated it. They just keep working with the same sort of. I keep wondering if they're gonna make like a new one. It's the new, but they've gotten a lot of years out of that thing when you think about it. Charles says he's bought a switcher, a Boss ES8. Any thoughts on having more than one pedal in a loop and deciding good approach? Yeah. Some really good questions here today. I do that sometimes where you run out of loops, and then it's like, well, I got to double up. And so it's something where just if you can put something that it was like, well, I'm never going to use that and that at the same time. So put those in the same loop. And then on your set list, when you're playing a gig or something, just mark it with like, remember to turn off the fuzz and turn on the compressor or whatever it is. Sometimes you got to do stuff like that. But I've done that. You can double up, and then you just have to remind yourself, in certain songs. It's a little more work, but it's no big deal. Let's see here. Either that, or you might be able to find a loop. Maybe there's a situation where you got two pedals that you'll always want to use together, and that's an obvious one too. But I would say most of the time I do the opposite, where it's like two things I'll never use together, and then I I just make little notes for myself to turn one or the other on or off, depending on the song I'm playing. James got a Rockaway Archer, and he loves it, but it's a bit noisy. They are a bit noisy. Anytime you've got an EQ, you're pushing gain, and like in different, and yeah, it's got some hiss to it for sure. So I actually use a like the same old MXR EQ, for example, those 6-band blue ones. They'll do the same thing. They'll add a whole bunch of noise. So I have a noise gate that I bought for $20. That's in the same loop. Speaking of two pedals in a loop, it comes after the Rockaway Archer, and I just use it on my lead sound. So I have that noise gate in the same loop, and it's buried underneath my H9s on my pedalboard. And I can almost show you, but it'll probably be kind of a pain. So I've got hard drives connected to the computer, so I can't really pick it up at this moment. But yeah, basically, it's a little Moore noise gate. That's like a a mini size pedal, and it's just I just kind of adjust the threshold manually depending on how much gain I've got going on the pedal, and it works great. Okay, let's see, and you're using it to boost your SL67, which is that must sound great using that pedal to boost that amp. Sound really good. Sterling says use an audio interface for a mic and compression and gate for that super professional NPR sound. So I can sound like Jason, what's his name? Have lots of low end on my voice. I should do that. It's not like I do have a mic here, and I don't mean to be lazy, but this just works, and it seems fine, right? I don't know. It would be better if I had a maybe. Okay, all right. Next week I'll hook up the mic again. It'd be better. What's next? Michael Smith is here. What's up, Michael? Happy Sunday. And Marshall Mouth says, good morning. It's gloomy and wet in LA today. Stay dry and enjoy your cup of coffee. I know. I love it, though. The rain is it's going to rain like a lot this week here. And I always say this, but we need it. That's why there's forest fires here and stuff. Let's see here. Got a Supro drive pedal based off of my review on its way. That's a cool pedal. It's a unique pedal. The Supro pedals are all their transformer or whatever, and they have a great sound. Their tremolo is awesome as well. Robin's from Norway. Hi, Norway. What's up? Steve is from Madison. Great aux vid. Thank you. Yeah, the aux video I put out this week, I was really happy with the way it came out. I like that thing a lot. It's a really great tool. Got it sitting right here. We knocked it out of the park. Okay. Let's see. Q-Stick says he needs a fresh reverb pedal. Basic reverb, not ambience. MXR versus Strymon Flint versus Keeley Abbey. I've never tried the Keeley. The Flint is awesome, and it's got tremolo in there to boot. It's been on my little baby pedal board. It's just been a great thing that I've had for years. It's so nice to sound that little switch to go from spring to plate to Hall or whatever the hell it is, 60s, 70s to 80s, and you got a few simple knobs, and it's like all you need. Now, the other one I really like these days is the MXR M300, which I have on my board here. It sounds awesome, and it's similar. 3 knobs with a couple secondary functions, and it's got mod reverb and spring reverb and Hall reverb, plate reverb, and the shimmer thing. It's just a lot in a small format. I mean, it's a lot smaller than the Flint, so it's got that going for it. What's the other one you mentioned? Oh, you did mention MXR. So yeah, MXR versus Flint. The only thing about the MXR is it's mono, I think. It's made to kind of be used in front of an amp. That's what George Trips told us anyway, that you could use it in an effects loop, but it's kind of, if you're running in front of an amp with a basic pedal board, it's a really, really good choice. With it sounds great going even into a little bit of crunch. So, and Vintage and Rare is here. They say, are you into vintage gear? Yes, I love vintage gear. I do. I don't have a hell of a lot of vintage gear, but I have an old, 60s Strat, 60s Tele, and 6335. So that's my vintage gear. On my 71 Marshall and a 66 Bassman. Few simple pieces. Have I tried the Moore Radar? I have the Moore Radar right here. Here it is. Here it is now. So I'm going to plug this thing in here this week and do a demo of it. I was having a little issue with the Mac software, and they sent me new software for it. So I'm going to experiment with that and get it going with it, because I have a Sir reactive load here. So I will make a demo of that pedal coming up very soon. And it seems really good from what I've heard online. I just haven't been able to use it yet. The problem was I wasn't able to load my own IRs. I was forgetting what it was, but it had IRs in it, and I got that going. It sounded pretty good and stuff, but I want to load the Celestion ones into it and see how that sounds. So, okay, are there any guitar books that I recommend or that I found useful? There's this Robin Ford blues course that I really enjoyed that I got ages ago. I don't buy a lot of books anymore, though, because everything seems to be online. Also, there was an Albert Lee country, kind of that came. Both those came with CDs, so I'm sure they're both available, probably as digital downloads now or something. But I really liked the Albert Lee one, and it stole a bunch of licks from both that and the Robin Ford book. And then there's Chord Chemistry by Ted Green. That's the classic. It's really heady. Have I ever played a divided by 13 GRT 915 or other amp with a pentode? Yeah, so there's one sitting right there. That divided by 13 right there is a RSA 31, and it's got the pentode preamp in it. Don't really use that side that much. And the 915 is a really cool amp, actually. It sounds really good. Yeah, I don't really use that side on it much. I usually want the more EQ control and sort of more the recognizable tone. That amp sounds so good, though. I used it in the aux video, actually, and it's for that AC30 thing. It's just terrific. So I'm going to use it more. I hadn't used it in years. There was one of the input jacks was dirty, and it was just like kind of crackly and stuff, and so I had it fixed, and now it's fine again, of course. I'm like, why haven't I been using this thing? So it sounds really good. The difference between the aux and the Rivera Rock Crusher recording. Well, the Rock Crusher's got its sort of analog speaker sim. That would be the biggest difference, is the aux has the full suite of, the... just turn it on and look at it. I'm going to do that. I'll just get the iPad going here, and then I can kind of show you guys. It's going to take a second, but so when you power up the aux, it's got Wi-Fi in it, and then you just have to pair your iPad to it. Oh, right. So there's an extra step here. I have to go into the Wi-Fi, and I have to select the aux. So, go to my Wi-Fi list here, select the aux as my Wi-Fi source or whatever. And now I can go to the aux app, find my aux. Now it pairs. There it is. So, you guys see that even? I don't know if that's working or not. Let me look at the... Yeah. So that's how you do that. And then, you can just go through and you got your two close mics and room mics on this fader. There's your master fader. Effects you can select there, from the EQ to the compressor to the delay to the verb. You pan everything, off axis, bass roll off, do whatever you want. A whole bunch of different cabinets, really easy. So that's the difference. This is the main difference between the Rock Crusher recording. The Rock Crusher recording's got the analog graphic EQ situation, and it's just sort of a much simpler analog thing. This is not that this is complicated. I don't find it complicated. It's actually really easy to use, but it's deep. You can store presets and do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So I would say that that's the main difference, is the analog approach as opposed to the digital approach, which are both valid. David says, "You're the best, dude." No, you're the best. You guys are the best for being here, hanging out with me on Sunday. Can I please talk about some decent monitors on a low budget? Um, my favorite small monitors are the A5s, the Atoms. Um, by low budget, if you mean, I don't know a lot about like monitors below $500 or something, like 250 each or something. So you would have to do some research. But the best thing I would say is just go to Guitar Center or something and go in that room where they've got all those monitors and just listen to a whole bunch and see what sounds good. I'm sure there's some great stuff out there. I'm just not. I've used the same stuff forever, either Dynaudios, Atoms, or I've got the Barefoots, you know, the MM45s in my room. So as far as the lower, I'm sure there's some good stuff out there that sounds really good. That's not too expensive. I haven't even shot. I mean, the Atoms is the main thing I've used, and then I got the Barefoots recently, which are awesome. The Atoms I bought 10 years ago or more, maybe 12 years ago, and I've just used them ever since. So once you learn a set of monitors, you can kind of mix on. You know, it's to me monitors is like whatever you get used to. You know, like if you feel comfortable on it, you're like, yeah, I know how guitar is supposed to sound on these. Whether or not it's like a perfect sound or a, you know, if it's just like, yeah, I know how to make this work. And it's like you hear certain frequencies build up, you know, you got to cut a certain range or whatever. When you move to a different pair of monitors, that can be completely confusing. I don't know. I don't know if it sounds good or not because it could just be these speakers that I'm not familiar with. So you can kind of mix on anything once you're familiar with them. That's what I think. Certainly NS10s were not flat, but people learned how to mix on them, right? It was like the thing with NS10s was like, okay, well, the guitar and the snare drum and stuff just kind of have to be tearing your head off a little bit, and you can kind of hear the bass. Sort of. That's when you knew your mix was right on NS10s. You just had people learned how to mix like that, you know? You didn't put the tissue paper over the tweeters and stuff because they were too bright. It was like very not flat, not perfect. It was more a comfort thing. People got used to them. It says, what are my thoughts on using vintage pedals? A 69 and a 73 Univox Super Fuzz that are holy grail playing alone, but not good for live or recording. That's interesting. Do they just not cut through live? Or why wouldn't, if they sound good by themselves, are you just not digging the tone, or is it more like a reliability thing? I mean, there's such good new stuff out there for fuzzes and stuff. There's so many 40 million different pedals, you know, that you should be able to find something that you like, I would think. That's modern. You know, I mean, it's like twin bender here. This is like an old, you know, bender style fuzz. It's got the Mark, what is it, the Mark IV, Mark II switch or whatever. You know, so you can switch to two different sounds. The attack, this fat thing. It's like, you know, I don't know. You could buy an old tone bender or whatever, and it would be $1 million, or you could just get one of these. It's got the bias pot on the side. Pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, I tend to, just probably because of the nature of what I do, I tend to gravitate towards a lot of new stuff, especially when it comes to pedals, because people are sending me pedals to make videos for. So it's like, that's the most exposure I have, is less with the old stuff, and, you know. Okay, moving along. Jay Frocon says, okay, ISOCAB or line load box. These days, I'm a strong advocate for the load box thing, because the IRs and stuff is so good. And I've done multiple tours now, going back to all the way to 2013 or whatever, where I was using a load box with an amp with the IR loaded in, and it always sounded, I mean, you know, like in the PA and stuff, it just kills, because you've got this optimum mic'd speaker sound with a great impulse response that the engineer gets it, and they go like, whoa, that sounds good. Like, you know, a couple times where we compared microphones to IRs with different engineers where I was doing different tours, and they would pull up the mic and then pull up the load box with the IR, and it was like the load box, it always just sounded like punchy and in your face. And it's one thing when you're micing a cabinet in the studio and you can move the mics around, get it just perfect and everything, but like when you're talking about a ISO cabinet or something that's under a stage, and it's, so first of all, we're talking about an ISO cabinet. It's not a perfect environment. They generally sound kind of boxy to me. And then, you know, you're not going to have like, probably have one mic in there. It's probably a 57. If it's not, it's, you know, and the mic can move a little bit. It's just like, it's hard to compete with like a really, really good load box and great impulse response that just sounds like perfect, like it was done in a great studio, you know. So I'm an advocate for the load boxes these days for sure. It's just an easier way to get, consistent sound every night. That's the other thing, is consistency. Going from venue to venue to venue. Like I say, the mic can move on that cabinet. So, I just never had a good luck with the boxy thing, with ISO cabs. It means you're putting it in a small space usually. If you've got a great big ISO box that's the size of a road case, I suppose. But even then, it's just like, it doesn't sound like the cab's open in a room. Yeah. What do I think about the Valve King 200 head? I don't know it. I'm sorry. I don't. Any advice to stop volume fluctuation during recording? Thanks from London, Ontario. What's fluctuating? Please be more specific. I will try and help. The guitar amp fluctuating. Hi from Ottawa. Any experience with Traynor amps? I absolutely love them. I like them too. I don't have a lot of experience with the new ones. The old ones, like the old YBA ones and stuff, are really cool. Basically, like really, really similar to a Marshall circuit, and they sounded great. Like poor man's Plexi, but they sounded killer. I was talking with Doug Pinnick, did the video with Doug at my studio a week or two ago, or whenever it was, and he was mentioning in that video that his first real good amp was a YBA one, Traynor, that he found for cheap. Oh, he traded 2 cabinets for it or something. Got this Traynor head, and that's what he used for early King's X on the bass. That's kind of interesting. I had no idea. So I thought that was a neat story. Good grindy top end kind of sound. Okay, we got 335 people online. That's pretty good. Not bad for Daylight Savings Day, where probably a lot of people forgot. Or sleeping in, as they should be, because it's Sunday. What's the difference between the aux and rock crusher? Oh, I already answered that. It's the same question from John. Did the aux and rock crusher thing. One's analog, one's digital, I would say. Beyond that, there's probably differences in the loads and stuff. That comes down to, what do you think of the sound? How do you choose what drum grooves to use on a track? Do you edit the drum groove or use what is available? I start with what's available and then I edit. Is generally, there's so many, all the drum programs now have, like loops and beats and things like that. So what I'll generally do is, if I'm using, say, Easy Drummer 2, there's this thing called Tap the Beat or something in it, where you'll put in the basic kind of groove you think you want. So you just hit the kick, and then you hit the snare, and then hit the hi-hat, and it gives it, you put in a pattern, basically. And then it looks at all its available grooves in its groove browser thing, and spits out a whole bunch that it gives you a percentage that shows how close it is to the beat that you tapped in. It's like, this one's 96% there, so maybe the kick pattern's just ever so slightly different or something, And there's like a whole list of them, and then you just go through and audition those. Go, yep, that one sounds good. So then you grab that and you put it in this thing called the Song Creator. And the Song Creator then spits out a whole bunch of intros, verses, pre-choruses, chorus, fills, just a whole bunch of grooves and beats that are like, it looks at that original groove that you came up with and then gives you a whole bunch of sort of variations of that for different parts of the song. And then you can kind of string all those together. I just pull all those out of the plugin, out of Easy Drummer. There's different ways to do it. You can do it within the plugin. I pull them out and put them on the track in Logic, and I just string them all together and I make a song, basically. And then they're never quite perfect, so then I got to go through and change velocities and change the kick pattern a little bit here and there, or change like whatever, program a couple fills. But yeah, that's generally how I do it. And if I do that, I can do a drum track in like an hour, probably like an hour, assemble it. It's really easy. I wish I was a drummer, and then what I would do is get one of those Alesis, pad kits for cheap, like $300 or $400 or whatever they are, where it's just pads, and I'd just play the parts in, and grandiose dreams of being able to do that. But play the part into my like Stephen Slate drums or whatever, and use the Slate sounds, but just actually play the part, and then go back and fix little things that need to be fixed and on the grid or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, both Slate and Easy Drummer are excellent. I'd like to get Superior Drummer one of these days too. Superior Drummer 3, I hear it's amazing. They keep getting better, those things. Here's a good question from Kyle. Kyle says he has an AX8 and using a Matrix 1000 and a 412 Marshall cab. Should I turn the cab simulation off? I don't sound as good when I do. Well, yes, you should, because you're already getting the cab is the sound, right? You know, the cabinet. Sorry, I'm not making sense. The Marshall cabinet is providing the speaker sound. So if you're adding speaker simulation, you're getting a double simulation effect. So if you find you like the sound with the speaker sim on and through the Marshall cab, it just means you probably want the tone darker. So just try and darken it up on the amp. But I wouldn't want that. That would be like a blanket over the amp having the bolt on to me. You know, either use an EQ after the amp model or, you know, just go right into the amp, just turn down the treble and presence and stuff and warm it up a bit. It should be better sound. It should be more natural. To me, it would sound really muffled using both a Marshall cabinet and a cab sim before that. You know, might sound good like while you're by yourself, but get in a band or whatever, it's probably going to sound really dark, I would think. Does it make sense to get an aux for a 20-watt tube amp, a VHT? That's from Christopher. Or should I wait to have a more substantial amp like a Sir or Friedman small box? I don't think it really matters. I mean, if you've got an amp that you like, that sounds good to you, go ahead and get a load box and use it and enjoy, you know, record. It just makes your workflow easy. I mean, I can record in here, you know, record these 100-watt amps or whatever, no problem. So that's really the advantage. You know, just makes you enjoy your amp more. That's what I find. That's a great thing about the aux. It's a great device because it's making it easier for people that still want to use a traditional tube amp to use it. So reactive load's great too, or the torpedo products or whatever. They're all helping to make tube amps a viable alternative to maybe going totally digital. Sorry, got distracted. What do I think of the Marshall DSL-40? I liked it back in the day. I don't know. I'm sure it's probably basically the same design now as the original DSL-40s that were out in the 90s. Those are the only ones I've tried. I haven't tried a new one. But it was a good little amp. You know, usable. Recommend upgrades for saddles for a standard Telecaster. Does brass make a big difference? I'd look at whatever Wilkinson has. Those are, I think, the bridges that Sir's used for a long time. Does brass make a big difference? I think, I'm sorry, I'm not an expert in it, but I think original Telecasters, the saddles are supposed to be brass, right? It's part of the... Tele's an interesting thing with the unique bridge pickup, the bass plate, and then the saddles. It's like it's got a unique tone that you kind of have to have all the formula there in order to really get that sound, I think. So, unless you want a different sound. Okay, moving down. Is it better to avoid pickups with an inherent mid-bump? Seems every overdrive adds more mid-range, and I'm ready to remove the pickups since nothing seems to work well with it. This is from Brent. I wonder what kind of pickups you have. You know, it's... Yeah, overdrives do add a lot of mids. You can get overdrives with flatter mids. Like, for instance, the Full Drive 2 has that flat mid thing. That's what it's designed to do. It's basically kind of like almost a tube screamer circuit, but with less mids. So there's ways that you could probably try and make it work. But if you've got real MIDI pickups, I'm not a big fan of pickups with a ton of mid-range. You know, I like them more open, like top and bottom. That's what I kind of dig. And, you know, that's kind of why I use lower output pickups and stuff and don't do the hot humbuckers that much. Thoughts on the Katana Artist? I haven't tried it, but I've heard nothing but good things about the Katana amps. You know, it's supposed to be really good for just practicing and kind of what they're made for. The sort of versatile, low volume, low dough, decent kind of situation. Thoughts on vintage Les Paul Juniors? I love them. I love them, actually. I would love to have a vintage Les Paul Junior. That or even an SG Junior. Whatever they called them, the original, you know, Les Paul, like a 62 or 63, you know, that are the you know, kind of with a nice wide neck, SG, 1P90, like it. Jim Siebel from Scumbag Speakers has a SG special with the two P90s. I love that guitar. It plays so good. He lent it to me for a while and then took it back, of course. And I was like, you can't have this guitar back. Such a great guitar. It's in the SL68 video I did, where I play like a cult on it or something. And I really, really like that guitar. That's like one of those vintage guitars where, like, if you picked it up, you're like, oh shit, I have to buy this guitar, because it's just when you find a good one, I don't know, really. I almost like the SG Juniors more and specials more than Les Paul Juniors, which is blasphemy almost. But I do love a good. A lot of people really like the double cutaway Juniors. Like John Suhr has a real affinity for those. He got one actually. He's got a '59 Les Paul Junior. Well, got it recently. Double cutaway. I sort of gravitate a bit more towards the Sunburst, single cutaway Junior style if I was going to have one, and I do really like those guitars. So I would love to have one of those and/or an SG Junior or special. I used to play with Martha Davis from the Motels for a while in the 90s, and she had a TV green Les Paul special. That was killer. The big fat neck on it. 56, I think. And it was, that TV green color, that yellowy color. And with the, two P90s. What a great guitar. It sounded really good. In great shape. Okay, my chat jumped around a little bit, so I'm going to move down and try and find where I was. Sorry, just give me a second. I hate it when it does that, but one second. Okay, I'm just going to back up quite far, so I'm just going to kind of start here. Sorry if I missed your question, please. Oh, there, I found the Traynor amps question. I found where I was. Amazing. Move down a little bit. Good noiseless Tele pickups. I really like the this. I use the Suhr noiseless system a lot. There's the Illich. What the hell is it called? It's the system that Suhr used to use. They're noiseless, and it's standard single coil pickups, but it's a backplate that you can get. In the Tele, I guess it goes under the pickguard. I'm not sure how it works in the Tele, to tell you the truth. But look into the Illich. Illich is the guy's name, I think. Somebody else chime in the chat here and help me with this. I can't remember what it's called, but that thing works great with any pickups. Beyond that, if I really needed some noiseless Tele pickups, I would probably look at if you don't go the Suhr route or the Illich route, I would probably look at maybe what DiMarzio's got, their virtual vintage or whatever. Those are noiseless, I think, and people seem to like those. I think Tim Pierce has some more Strat pickups that I've heard about. But look at some of DiMarzio's offerings if you want. Just probably the easiest way to go. Kenny Roberts says, in-ears suck. I would sort of mostly agree. I don't mind them for some things, and they're great as a singer, but for the most part, they're such a drag. Do I ever feel disconnected when playing into gear like the Helix or X8? Not really. Live, it's a different experience, and maybe you mean live, and most of the time I'm using devices like that in a studio setting, in which case it's kind of really loud helicopter right now. In which case it kind of feels like running an amp anyway. It might, so I'm really used to listening to guitar through studio monitors at this point. That's very comfortable for me, more so than an amp. So there can be a hard adjustment, I understand, going to, and maybe that's what you're experiencing. So one of the nice things about the aux is actually the fact that it's an attenuator too. So no matter what, you can still run a cab, right? So consider this: if you're on in-ears, the fellow that was asking about in-ears earlier and saying, like, I know I got my amps in an ISO box and it's mic'd or whatever. Like, consider this: you could get an aux, right? You could still have like a 112 guitar cabinet facing you and no one else, and you could use the aux to attenuate that cabinet down to almost no sound. And you could still have a little cabinet there, and then take the outputs of the aux and put it into a DI and send it to the PA. And maybe everybody would be happy then. Maybe that's another way around. So I haven't experimented with using this thing live, but that can be a thing where it's like, look, can I just like have a 112 guitar cabinet, and maybe then you don't need your, if you can hear the drummer because the drummer's there, maybe get a one in-ear in or pull them out a little bit, you can hear that cabinet a little bit. Just anything to have a guitar cabinet there, because in 2016, I did a tour in France with Michel Polnareff, French artist, and they initially were like, yeah, we don't want any cabinets on stage. And then I sort of talked the stage manager, and can I just try having a cabinet on stage, even if it's not that loud? And he was like, okay. So I put the cabinet out, and it was like, oh man, I'm so glad I brought it up, because it was so great to have the cabinet there and be able to lean into it for feedback and stuff. And we were using in-ears, but I had the cabinet there. It was like some interaction between the guitar and the speakers is a big part of guitar, and it's a big part of why I've been on this big crusade lately, basically, to say, like, don't turn the guitar into the synthesizer. It's not some digital instrument that, a big part of it is the amp and the guitar interaction. It's magic. So if we pull that out of it, we're sort of destroying a big part of what's cool about electric guitars. Anyway, that I got onto from somebody asking about the Helix and AX8. Incidentally, if you haven't tried it, try the Friedman BE100 model for the Helix. It's exceptional. I was like, my God, that sounds good. If you've got a Helix, it's definitely, to me, the best high gain one in there. I was blown away, actually. And I'm reminded now I got to update my Helix here at home with it, because I only did it at the studio. What are the specs on my Mac? My Mac is it's a SSD drive. The one here that I'm on right now is a 500, I guess. But probably, I think the one that I have at the studio is a 500 too. SSD, you gotta get an SSD these days. Don't do the Fusion drive or any of that stuff. Get the full-blown SSD. It's worth it. And if you have one that doesn't have it, go to Otherworld Computing, OWC, and order the upgrade kit and it's $300, I think, to put an SSD in just about any Mac. It'll make your computer like a new computer. It's amazing. And then as far as all the other stuff, my Macs have top-end, like the best video card you can kind of get, because I'm doing all that video editing and stuff for demo videos, and that just makes workflow way faster when you've got a good video card. And what are the other specs? I don't know. I'd have to look on the... my laptop is a 2.5 Intel Core i7 with 16 gig of RAM. And yeah, the graphics card is the AMD Radeon R9 M370X. Like, this is a 2015 era laptop, and I got it, I don't know, a year and a half ago, and it's pretty blazing. It's good. Yeah, that was from Minisurf. We're learning about the mech. Okay, what do I recommend after playing Hits a Plateau? Enjoy, write some songs. Enjoy the Plateau. No, I don't know. If you're looking for more stuff to learn, go on Jam Track Central and download Mateus's lesson or Laurie Basilio's. I got both those, and there's tons of stuff in there to learn. It's different licks and stuff. Just have to, really, there's so much instructional material now. Just go out and get a bunch of it. And, all the stuff online. There's always more to learn. Go to Rick Graham's site and get depressed. So guy's so good, it's crazy. He's got tons of lessons on his site, by the way. Rick Graham, if you go check out he's got a gajillion lessons you can download there for $25 each. They're really good. He's a good teacher, and he's funny. Okay, how do I manage noise and interference coming through cleaner tones when recording? So that's a big reason why I actually came here this week, is that the space that I record in now, my studio space, is really noisy with EMI or electromagnetic interference or electrostatic interference. Whatever's happening coming through the pickups is really noisy in that space, whereas here it's like dead quiet. So doing high gain stuff and whatnot, I can use a high gain amp and a load box or whatever, and I can get great high gain sounds without all that buzz coming through the pickups. So it's like literally like when I move the guitar around, I can find the, it's that kind of buzz. And then you roll the volume off on the guitar and it's gone. Here it's minimal. At the studio it's significant. And so I use gates, and I hate gates, but I use certain noise gates and stuff at work, and just you have to edit the audio and stuff to make sure there's no buzz at the beginning of your track. It's just a pain in the ass. Find the magic spot to sit. Using compressors causes problems because it lifts the noise floor of the pickups, but I like using compressors, so you just kind of have to make it work. Combination of gates, sitting in the right position, playing guitars that are more quiet than others, which is a drag because you want to play the right guitar for the part, not necessarily the quietest guitar, but sometimes I guess that's a factor. Tracy says, really enjoyed your video with Doug from King's X. Thank you. Yeah, I was on cloud nine making that video. Thanks for watching. It was really fun. He was great, you know, and he was happy with it too. He was like, wow, it turned out really good. He was like stoked, I think, and that, you know, he's a legend. So grew up listening to that guy. Okay, John is asking, what's the difference between the aux and the rock crusher? John, I've answered it twice now, but the difference is mainly the app. So I'm going to say it one more time, just real quick, in case you missed it. This is the app for the aux. So with this, you can select microphones, cabinets, and stuff like that. And this iPad, you know, I've got connected up to the aux, and you can just do all your changing of the cabinet sound. So the main thing would be the aux has this. The Rock Crusher recording has the analog, you know, simple graphic EQ thing. So this is far more sophisticated. You might like that simplicity of the Rock Crusher. It's just different ways to go about the same thing. You know, I think there's validity to the sort of the traditional analog cab sim thing, like a Palmer or, you know, the Rock Crusher. Some people just like that simple interface of a graphic EQ or whatever. People like, I know Michael Thompson, I think, liked that thing, or maybe he likes the JDX. I can't remember. I don't want to talk out of turn, but he likes simple analog speaker simulator kind of things. Whatever works, you know. But that'd be the main difference. One's the digital thing, the other one's the analog thing. Any advice getting on with other musicians who have very different personalities and musical ideas? How to contribute without coming over as grumpy or abrupt? Well, that's a good question. That's from Gil. You have to kind of give everybody their due. Don't let your... So whenever you feel you're, you know, oh, like I don't like that idea, or I don't want to even explore that idea when somebody else is bringing something up, and then you're kind of like, it's your ego, you know, getting in the way. Like your ego's... And the interesting thing that happens is when you just let your ego chill for a minute and you just give somebody else, a lot of beautiful things happen when you just let somebody have their idea heard. Because we all just want to be heard and understood in life. This is like all the way from little kids on the playground to like politicians at the highest level. I feel like if everybody would just, you know, have the courtesy or whatever to, if somebody else has an idea, just go, okay, let's listen to that idea. And really listen and hear it through. How long will it take? You know, a minute, 2 minutes to like listen to somebody else's musical idea. And the amazing thing that happens is, that I've found, is that when you drop your ego and you just, everybody gets their ideas heard, the best idea generally is obvious to everybody. So when you take the egos out, all the ideas get heard. The best one's like, oh yeah, your idea is better than mine. That's cool, you know. And then in that process, you've done two things. You've given somebody else the courtesy of being heard, right, and the respect, you know, which feels good to them, and then they respect you in return. They're like, wow, they really, you know, without even thinking about it, this happens. This is what I found anyway. And then when you want an idea to be heard the next time, they're going to listen because they're like, yeah, it starts to build this really nice working relationship. Or if you just hear somebody out, and so then the other thing that might happen is, because you mentioned here, that they have very different personalities and musical ideas. Well, because they have a different musical idea, they might play something that you never would have thought of. And you learn in that moment. It's happened to me many times where it's like, shit, that is good. You know, where it's like they come up with something and you just go, man, that's a good idea. Like I never would have thought of doing that. And so in that moment, you've gained their respect, you've shown them respect, and you've also learned something. You've now added to your arsenal of licks or musical ideas or chord changes or whatever it is that they came up with. So that's the best thing for me. It can be difficult, but sometimes it's, you know, reap the rewards of showing that respect and just hearing them out and hearing their different ideas. You know, it can be a really powerful thing. We had that great thing going on when I used to work for Linda Perry a lot in a recording studio. We had a core band that would always work with every artist that came in. It was fun because it would be like, you know, everybody from singer-songwriters to Alicia Keys, right, would come in, and it would be our core band, but then there'd be some other person come in. But we were like a team, and then working with these different people that would come through. You know, it's like Pink or James Blunt or like all these different people that were talented people, you know, really amazing people. and they kind of had to assimilate into it because they were there to work with Linda, so they had to kind of assimilate into the group. So they kind of became a part of the band, our little band, and it was like this, and it was like a real safe environment to mention an idea or say, hey, what if we did this, you know? And it could be me saying to the drummer, what if we went double time? Or what if you did this fill and accented this thing? And then if he said, well, I don't know about the guitar thing you're playing, if it's locking with my thing, what if you, and I would be like, oh, okay. And we would have that kind of back and forth, real like open and never got heated or anything like that. It was always this great environment for being creative. And sometimes there's these like kind of basically like mega artists that would come through, and it was really cool. It was just a great environment. So that's kind of where I learned that. Was because it just felt so good to be working at a high level in a beautiful studio and stuff like that, but then have everybody's ideas heard and not a lot of ego going on. It's cool. How do I feel about the Boss ES8 and Gig Rig G2 compared to the Musicom Lab Effects Mark V? Okay, the ES8 and the Musicom have a lot of similarities. I haven't used the Boss, but obviously they look similar. You can do some interesting things. I'm not sure if on the Gig Rig you probably can reorder the order of the pedals. Like so if you want to put loop 1 first and 1 preset, and loop 2 second, and loop 2 first and loop 1 second. I'm not sure if you can do that on the Gig Rig. Maybe you can. Somebody answer in the comments there. But that's a cool thing that you can do on both the ES8 and the Musicom. The Gig Rig looks awesome, and Daniel's great. He's a super cool guy. And a lot of people love it. I know they do. I haven't personally really tried it beyond when I saw it at GitCon, and I got to check it, but I wasn't really running it. He was running it there in that video I did for that pedal show. So one thing I really like about the Musicom is that it's small. On my Instagram page, I recently put up a picture, like this past week, of a pedal board with the slightly smaller new Musicom. It's even smaller than mine. And check out that little pedal board. It's beautiful. What a cool little pedal board. If I had my phone here, I would actually just... Oh, here, I'm going to show you. Check this out. It's such a great size, this thing. Here it is. Just make sure you can see it. See that little thing? What a cool little pedal board. And so it's almost like a little baby version of my board with a lot of the same pedals. I think somebody kind of copied me a little bit because the ethos is on there. And but anyway, it's a really, really great little board. So that's the small Musicom. So you might want to look into that one too. That might be called the EFX-LE, I think is the name of it. Yeah, EFX-LE, so real small. Not sure how many loops are on it and stuff, but I could probably do just about everything I need to do with that little board. Nice pedal choices on there too. Really cool. So that's another one to look at. But just the size of the Musicom, and I'm used to the workflow on them, like how to edit them and stuff like that. I'm really comfortable with it at this point, so it's cool for me. Okay, pickup manufacturers I recommend looking for a single P90. There's so many good ones out there. I mean, Sir makes a great one. Really nice. John's kind of a P90 aficionado too, so you might check out theirs. People like Lawler, and then there's just Duncan. I would probably look at whatever Duncan's got for P90s. Nothing wrong with Duncan pickups. They're always great. Easily attainable. Oh, that's cool. Max saw Michael Landau. Sounds like he's over in Europe on Friday. Amazing player, touch, tone, and taste, isn't he? He is asking. You're asking about getting him on the Tim and Pete show. Yeah, I wish, man. He's just not really. It's not really his thing. I guess we've asked him. He didn't completely close the door, but I don't know if it'll ever happen. Not really. I would love it if it would, but one of the great things about Mike is he's kind of a mystery. I like that thing about him, that you just go see him and it's like kind of a religious experience watching him play guitar, and then not to know all his tricks and stuff is pretty cool. He's such a magic guitar player. It's really fun. It feels like I'm a kid when I watch Landau play. I have that sense of like I don't know exactly what's going on with everything he's doing, both with his note choices, his playing and stuff, and then also his tones and the way he's fading things in and out and hitting effects and controlling his guitar. It's like it's great to have a little mystery there, you know, still. So I kind of like that he's a mysterious character. TC Hall of Fame versus MXR Reverb, both are really good. That Hall of Fame with the mash thing on it is, I mean, I made a tone print for them, and I love that thing. It sounds great. I don't know, both great, both good options. I could use either. I don't know how to pick. Yeah. Dark says, "Hey man, your videos are very, very inspirational, and you're an inspirational guy and musician. Thank you for being here." Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it, and that's really nice to hear. I have to say, it really is. Have I tried the San Pedro Art Walk on every first Thursday of the month? Lots of art, food trucks, and live music on 6th Street and 7th Street. I have not. That's coming from Marshall Mouth. I used to go down to San Pedro when I used to go to Fred from Divided by 13 had a shop down there, and I'd go quite often, maybe once every couple months or something. I'd be down there, but that's really the only time I ever got down there. I haven't been for a long time. Pete Thorn says, "I just saw Big Wreck in Seattle last Tuesday and was life changing." That's awesome. Yeah. We were sitting in the back. I was there with Sir and a bunch of people from Sir and stuff. So we had a table in the back. But I kind of almost wish I'd gotten down front for a little bit because I know it would have been sort of louder and gotten the experience like right up front. But it sounded great where we were sitting too. So great. Yeah, they're so good, man. Great to see great rock and roll, progressive kind of pushing the envelope and still being made and stuff done on such a high level, So I'm going to see Ian. I think he's kind of vacationing down in the area for a few days. I think we're going to go grab dinner on maybe tomorrow night or Tuesday night, I hope. Hello from Alberta, says Jason. I mentioned a while back I might possibly do a video on how I approach making a song from scratch, kind of like the clinics that I do. Yeah, I mean, I should probably do that at some point. I think it's one of the things people request the most. Like, how do you do your drums? How do you do, be an interesting thing to just kind of do it. I like the kind of the live videos that like Deadmau5 does, where you just turn on the camera and then for like 8 hours you're just sitting there like writing and recording, and anybody wants to tune in, like this sort of thing, just a live thing, can just be a fly on the wall and watch what you're doing. I would feel like pressure, I think, to make it cool or something, or be moving at a faster pace than I probably normally do. That's the only thing, that it might get boring, that I worry. But he's obviously just doesn't care about that, and I love that because sometimes he'll work on something for like 5 hours and then just go, this sucks, and scrap it and start over. If you've been watching, it's like, that's the whole thing. It's a fly on the wall view of his creative process. And I think that's really cool. So maybe that would be the way to do it. Just put the laptop in the corner and just start recording, or start live streaming. I mean, and show what it's actually like with no edits or anything. I'd suck though. I'd be terrible. People go, God, he's actually really. It sucks in the beginning, and then he finally gets it together. I see. But that's everybody's process, I guess. So maybe I shouldn't be afraid of that. Let's see here. Moving along. Hello from Strasbourg. That's a great town. Love Strasbourg. What a beautiful city on the border of France and Germany. Okay. Did you ever get to work with Billy Corgan when I was working with Linda? Yes. I did a whole record with Billy. That's from Adam. I got great Billy Corgan stories. He was cool. We had fun. I mean, we were the two guitar players on Courtney's record that never came out. So we recorded a whole album that didn't get released, but Billy was we co-wrote some stuff. Like I've got couple songs that came out on the whole record. The last one, Nobody's Daughter, were co-writes with Billy, me, Courtney, Linda. You know, and yeah, I mean, I used to sit there on the couch and beside one another with our headphone boxes or whatever to do this. You know, I worked with them for quite a few months that year, and it was cool. He even brought up at one point, I think, when he was doing Pumpkins again, putting it back together, he's like, "So everybody tells me that I should, be looking at you for Smashing Pumpkins." And I was like, "Yeah, I would be interested in that." And then he never brought it up ever again. So, anyway, I like Billy. There's a cool video that Reverb, I think, recently put out with him talking about the op amp Big Muffs, and he shows how he uses it, and he's cool. I mean, he's outspoken sometimes. Sometimes I think he says stuff that isn't cool. Like every now and then it gets him in trouble, but whatever. It's just his opinion. Like everybody's got one. He used to kind of talk shit about Soundgarden, and him and Kim would get in back and forth but whatever. He's a neat guy and a unique guitar player. And okay, moving on. Are katanas overrated? I don't know. I mean, David says he's thinking about selling his Fender bass breaker and buying the katana head. I don't know. You'd have to. I don't know. So hard. It's all subjective. Let's see. Sterling says, I sound great, thank you. Leon says, hi from Ireland. How close does the PT100 get to the SL68? Pretty close on channel 2. You can get pretty close. The SL68, though, there's just something there's things like with the lower filtering and just that plexi design that nothing sounds like that design, The second that you start to kind of the PT100 is like a cross between a really, really great sounding sort of JCM 800 sound and a plexi sound, but a little bit more refined or something. That's the way I hear it. Yeah, when I've compared them, I've been able to get pretty close, but never quite 100%, and that's just the magic of a plexi. It's like, and it's not that it's always both two good sounds, but you can never quite dial in the one to sound like the other. That's what I found. So something about the old 4-hole Marshalls, it's just, you got a thing. Jason asked, do people ever stop you on the street and recognize you from YouTube? Yes, all the time, every day. It's cool. It's funny. And your friends trip out. They're like, really? They're like, they know you from YouTube? It's like, yeah, I'm that pedal guy. But it's funny because at some point it crossed over from, not being a sideman with people. You go play with people, and every now and then someone goes, hey, don't you play with so-and-so? I saw you at that gig. And that would happen occasionally, But now it's like, hey, I watch your pedal videos. And that happens almost daily. And that's just the power of the internet. And it's like, wow, I became the pedal video guy somehow. Didn't plan on it, but it happened. Fine with it. If I have my noise gate pedal in the effects loop, could I explain why putting it there? I don't have my noise gate pedal in the effects loop. I put it right after the guitar generally. So all I'm trying to do is mute the noise coming out of the guitar. Sorry, on my pedal board I have it in a loop of the Musicom, and it comes after the Rockaway Archer pedal, which adds a little bit of noise because of the graphic EQ. So the noise that's coming out of the Archer, it's going to silence that. So I do use it like that. So I use them in a couple different ways. In the studio where I'm working at my studio doing tracks, and generally I'm just running a pedal or something, then going right into the front end of an amp, I just put it right after the guitar, generally speaking. If I'm using my pedal board live, there is a noise gate in the loop with my lead, because I'm going into a high gain, so it's like a pedal that's adding some noise going into a high gain sound. There's a fair amount of of hiss going on. So I just found that putting the noise gate after the overdrive pedal worked really well there. Gregory Stone says, do I ever suffer with anxiety? Mine comes in waves, and lately I'm having trouble even making it at 30 miles to practice twice a week. Anything you do to lighten, do you get it playing ever? Yeah, I can totally relate, Gregory. I mean, sure. I've gone through bouts where it's been really bad, actually, and it's much better now than it used to be. But, I don't, I wrote a whole article on this. Actually, if you go to my Premier guitar, that would be what I will recommend to you, because the intelligent thoughts about it aren't coming to mind right now. But go to my tone tips column, and you will find, going way back, a column that's all about stage fright and anxiety and some of the things that I would do to combat it. One thing that you can do is think about players that don't give a shit. And so I always use Jack White as a good example, because he just doesn't care, and I like that about him. He just, if the guitar breaks and falls apart in his hands, he just throw it on the ground and then like grab another one, and it's like, whoa, it was better. Like, it made it for a better show, do you know what I mean? It's like, I've actually seen, like, he talks, and it might get loud, about how if it takes him, if he's playing guitar and piano, he's got to jump onto the piano, and he knows it takes him, he needs to have the piano 4 feet away in order to make it from the vocal mic or whatever over to the piano in time. It's got to be a certain, he'll put it another foot away to make him, for the effect of actually having to make it. He might not make it, and it's like better, I like that, like he just, wants to give you a show and just kind of goes balls out and like just goes for it, like on stage. And there's like, mistake is an opportunity or whatever for something else to happen that might not have happened if it's a perfect performance. So if I'm getting in a bad headspace, I'll think about that kind of very just, punk rock sort of attitude, and a player like him, and what he would like. So what would he do at this point? And then just sort of try and take on that persona for a minute. It generally knocks me out of any kind of anxiety. So Ron Ellis is here. He says, winding away here and listening to me. Happy Sunday. Ron makes terrific pickups. Ron, I haven't put the Strat pickups in yet. He sent me a set of Strat pickups, and I'm sorry, Ron. I'm sorry. I just haven't gotten it done yet. But they're in a gig bag waiting with a guitar that I'm gonna try them out. So he wound me a set of Strat pickups. So I'm really looking forward to trying them. I will get it done. Thomas says, what are my preferences on positioning pedals or effects on a pedal board? Well, generally speaking, I guess I'll go into guitar, into maybe some sort of buffer. If you need to use a fuzz pedal, like it's germanium or something that doesn't respond well to buffers, you can put those first. So guitar into germanium, anything. Also univibes, those should come up front. You can come out of that stuff then generally into a buffer, and then go into a wah. So buffer before the wah, because wah's a suck tone, unless they're true bypass, but a lot of wah's suck tone, so volume pedals and stuff. So just put the buffer up front. And then after that, compressor, and then after that, any drives, overdrives, distortions, things like that. Sometimes I'll put a phaser up front, like so phase 90 or something in front of drives. Sounds cool like that. And then after your drives and distortions and stuff, then you can go generally, it's debatable what's better first, but you could go into, if you use chorus or any kind of modulation like that, chorus flange, that can happen, and then delay, and then reverb, I usually do last. That's it. Okay. David Ball says, well, hell, I don't think you are interested in my... What did you ask, David? Ask me again. My question. What was it? Did I miss it? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be flippant. Ask me again, David. Did you ask me about an amp or something that I don't know about? I'm sorry. I forget. I said I'm sorry 3 times. I'm so Canadian. Adam Stewart says, ask me again. I promise I'll answer. I didn't mean to be, brush it off. Curious on my take on the ultimate delay, says Adam Stewart, especially a pedal, not a rack unit. Well, I really like the simplicity and just the tones I get out of the DD500. The Boss DD500 works great. I used the Timeline for years. It's also really good. An H9 is terrific. Tons of options there for different delay sounds. The Empress Echo system, I think it's called, which I did a video of, is amazing. Really terrific. The only thing about that one that's a little tough is the MIDI. Like if you want to switch it via MIDI, you need this extra box, and there's a little bit of it's a little complicated. But man, what a delay! It sort of sounds good. So there's some good ones. I have a tonal recall here, the Chase Bliss analog pedal. I'm going to do a video for right away. There's videos out for it already. It's been out for a while, but it sounds really nice for an analog delay. It's super cool. And then there's one coming out that I can't tell you what it is yet, but it'll be out probably in NAMM next year. That's awesome, and it's analog. Really going to be like probably one of the best analog delays ever that's ever been made, ever. Do I tune my strings a few cents flat so the guitar sounds more in tune? The B string sometimes, especially on Les Pauls, I do that because I find that unless you've got the the nut cut just right, many B strings can sound fretted, sound flat, but the open note will be in tune. If that makes sense. So many times I check the tuning on the 3rd fret D note on the 2nd string, and I'll look and see if that's in tune. And then find if that's in tune. Sometimes the open string looks a little flat. I'm fine with that. And then I'll tune the G string also very carefully, and the low E occasionally, especially if I'm drop D or something. 6th string, you have to be careful. Sometimes you can tune it just a hair flat so that when you hit a chord or something, it comes up into tune and then falls off flat. And that can sound better, especially in drop D, than when you tune it right in tune when you're picking lightly. If you do that, I guarantee, if you're playing at the 3rd fret and holding that kind of, one chord thing, the 3rd fret, one finger across all the and drop D, it'll sound sharp. I hate that sound. So, okay, what else we got here? Can I recommend compressor pedals for hot humbuckers? Well, probably something with a mix knob. Hot humbuckers. I mean, I don't really think of different compressors as like better for singles or humbuckers. I'll tell you a good one is the little. I have the mini Ego Comp from Wampler on my pedalboard here. And it's got a treble switch on it, high-end switch, so for humbuckers you could actually get a bit of sparkle back, so that's nice. And it's also got an attack switch, so you can make it quite transparent, I find, which is nice, especially in a little mini pedal, which is really good. So maybe check out that one, the mini Ego Comp. I really like it. Simple, little, what's not to like? Next, looking for a true tube overdrive and distortion pedal. Any recommendations? Look at that Sherlock pedal that I did a demo of recently. It's all tube, and it sounds ferocious. It kind of sounds like Soldano-ish or something. It's really pretty cool. I did a video of it about, I don't know, a month ago. It sounds so Canadian right there. Did you hear that? I did a video of it about a month ago, yeah, Sherlock it's called. It's from Australia. The Artisan... Kato says the Artisan 15H hand-wired. Have I ever tried? No, I have not. If I use germanium fuzz or drive, do I prefer a 9-volt battery, alkaline or carbon, or do I care? I don't know. I would have to. I've never done that, to tell you the truth. Like really listened. Is it better with the battery and the carbon battery as opposed to an alkaline? I've never sat and done that. I'm sorry. I'm less tweaky than a lot of people think I am. But there might be something to it. I know it definitely is a thing. It's not bullshit. Like the germanium pedals especially, and germanium pedals change when the weather changes. No kidding. Like if it gets hot, the sound changes. It's weird. Problematic. Most of my playing is really like, I'm not that sort of the esoteric thing. I'm just like the get the job done guy thing, which is why I have a Boss Hyper Fuzz on my pedalboard. Because it's like, all right, that works. Sounds the same every time. That's going on there. Works with buffers, works with wireless. I'm that guy. Stefan says, you bought an Apollo Twin Mark II Duo and now looking forward to the delivery. Yeah, you're going to enjoy it. It's a great interface. Really, really good. Okay, we're about an hour and 15 in. I'll go another 15, 20 minutes or something like that. And then I'm going to jet. And then it'll give me time to index all the questions and stuff. So I'll answer a whole bunch of questions here at the end. Vintage Gear is killing Adam Stewart. He says he has 2 old amps with blown fuses and he's over it. If the fuse is blowing, it probably needs tubes. You probably just need to do a little maintenance. Things like, when the old amps, they need filter caps every 10 years or so. Need to be recapped. And you know, when you start blowing fuses, it means that tubes are probably the culprit. So just take them to a good tech and get them gone over. Pancake says, what do I think of the Bugera V22? Does it take pedals? Well, never tried it. We don't see a lot of the Bugera amps here in America, I find. Might be more of a European thing. Let's see. Any thoughts on the old Randall RG amps? They were good. The RG80, like the Def Leppard used to use, I think. Robin's asking that. They were good solid state amps. They had a cool distortion sound. I was in a band with a guy that had one. He had one of those snakeskin Randall heads that was solid state. So good. I mean, they part of the tone of the '80s. You know, they were pretty nice for what they were, for that hard rock thing. Greetings from the Netherlands. Hopes everybody's having a great day, says Ray. Thanks, Ray. Love the Netherlands. When I demo the Moore Radar, could I review the headphone jack as well? Does it have a headphone jack? I will do that. It does. I didn't even know that. Thanks for teaching me something. Headphone jack, little 1/8 inch. Okay, I'll do that. I'll just somehow jam along and mention it. Tell you what I think. Alex says he heard Perplexed from my old Guitar Nerd album for the first time today. Be checking out Guitar Nerd for sure. That's awesome. New subscriber and fan. Nice to have you here, Alex. Thanks. I appreciate it. New album's coming soon. There's a question here from Steve, but it got cut off. Says he's wondering what do I think is the best something or other, but ask again, Steve. I'll see if I can get to it. Would I ever do a guest solo on a record? That's coming from Adam. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the record. You know, I feel like I'd have to bond with it musically. That's all. You know, that it would be a good fit for me. And then I'm happy to think about doing things like that. Have I tried the Neo Creambacks with the SL67 yet? No, not yet. But don't have any hesitation about trying those Neo Creambacks. I've heard nothing but good things, and I have heard them. I heard them with it was an EVH 5150 50-watt head, and they sounded great on that kind of blue channel Marshall drive thing. It sounded really good. So I've referred them to a bunch of people, and or you know, that's not the correct way to say that, but you know what I mean. I've told a bunch of people about them, and they sound. Everybody's like, yeah, they do sound really good. I like them. So definitely want to look at using those in new products, amp products that we'll be doing, because they're so light and they just sound good. Thoughts on raw unfinished necks? I love them. You know, manufacturers have a hard time with them because they think like, oh, it's, you know, there's a chance that the neck could go bad or what. I love the feel, so it's almost worth it to me. I love raw maple, the whole '80s thing, Charvel thing. I fell in love with it back then. It just feels so good. Oh, I got a text from Mr. Thornley. He's saying, wants to hang out, have dinner. Awesome. We're going to get together and do dinner. Can't wait. Talk guitar with that guy. Pick his brain. It's a great show last night. Big Wreck show. So good. Suggest on a good cheap Marshall-esque combo for playing around the house. Like, what's cheap? That's the only thing. Everybody's definition of cheap is different. I mean, I think Dave's little runt combos are really nice for a good cheap Marshall-esque combo. I don't know if you consider it cheap or not, though, but they're a nice little amp. So I would look at that for now. If you can't wait for new stuff from us, from what I'm doing, it's going to be coming soon. When was the point when your YouTube channel took off? Well, it kind of just sort of continues to happen, really. Wow, I got almost 400 people online now. Maybe I should stay on longer today. I think maybe people forgot it was daylight savings and they showed up late. Anyway, what was I talking about? Runt combo. That's a good, sort of quasi-inexpensive Marshall sounding amp. Maybe a DSL-40. You might want to look at that, especially the used ones from the 90s. They were good little amps. You might look at that. And what's the point when my YouTube channel took off? So it took forever to get to 100,000 subscribers. I mean, it took 10 years for me. My channel was a slow build. It wasn't like some people where they, 2-3 years in and they're just like blowing up. It was a long, slow, because I'm kind of a niche, pedal videos and stuff. It's not like I'm like a music artist on YouTube, really. It's more like I'm the guitar pedal guy. So it's a smaller, defined kind of thing. And it took a long time to get to 100,000 subscribers, but like I'm at 118 now, I think, 1,000. And that's only since October something. So it kind of goes exponentially, which you hope you keep that momentum going, that, you get more people that want to come watch and look. I would say that, I mean, I remember when I had 50,000 subscribers. It wasn't that long ago. I remember I was doing the Tim and Pete show, and I remember being up at Tim's place and seeing that I'd just gotten to 50. So that was a couple of years ago. So I would say probably around 2013 is when I really felt like 12 or 13, when I really felt like it was taking off. It's like, wow, this is becoming almost like what I do, like as opposed to going on the road all the time or whatever. This is becoming what I do. And that was when I moved into the new studio that I had in Santa Monica, where I did a whole bunch of videos for Vintage King and stuff. And Vintage King came along and said, hey, we want you to make videos for us. And so like things started happening around then, around 2012 or 13, where it was really, so about 5 years ago, I would say. Okay. Let's see. Jerry Garcia says, hi Jerry. The Jerry Garcia? That can't be. He's got a 1965A Marshall 410, considering the DSL 15H or 20H or Origin 20H. Any thoughts for blues, rock, and some metal? I don't know if the Origin amp is really, from what I've heard, to be a good choice for metal. I would probably go with the DSLs. One of the DSLs seems like probably a better. I think the Origin seems to be more of kind of a middle of the road sort of overdrive situation. A little less aggressive maybe. Have I had any luck enjoying a solid state amp? What one, if so? I thought the Blues Cubes were pretty good, the Rolands. So I haven't tried the newer ones where you get like the modules, the Eric Johnson one and stuff. But the old ones sounded good. I mean, I remember them from the 90s sounding good. The original Blues Cubes. So yeah, they were pretty good. And to be quite honest, even the PVs that were out at the time, which had that trans tube, I thought they sounded pretty good. I used to work in a music shop that sold them. I don't know. I might hear it now and go, God, what was I thinking? But they sounded pretty good. Both the Roland and the PV, like the Bandit trans tube. I don't know. It was all right. Not amazing, but it sounded pretty good. Can I recommend any analog flangers that have a good range of chorusing flange tones? Well, how about the choral flange from Full Tone? Good pedal. I had one years and years ago. I haven't seen it for, I don't know where the hell it is, but it was a good pedal. I lent it to somebody, I think. I don't know if I got it back. But that's a good one. I would say the choral flange. Really nice sounding pedal, actually. That would be my recommendation. Is it normal to have a low hum when using a 100-watt head and 212 cabinet? That's coming from Aaron. Aaron, it's tough to it's impossible to diagnose, is the thing. There's so many things that could be causing noise, round loops, or could be the amp. So it depends. Steve Dipko says aux fractal or surreactive load. All are great, to be honest. They're all really good load boxes. With different features and at different price points. So if you want to know the truth, the quality of the load in all of them is excellent. And then how you choose to go about the speaker simulation and some of the other features on each one and the cost would dictate which way you should go, I think. but I have no qualms or I've listened to them all and listened to the loads and listened and done it. Yep, they're all good. I mean, it's load boxes have come a long way in the last 5 years, so there's good options out there for sure. So let the features and the cost dictate what way you want to go. Okay, have I ever tried Don Maris pickups? I've not. I've heard good things about them. They're supposed to be nice. Some of the setups that I have on the aux, which mics, etc. So yeah, well, I'm a kind of a greenback guy, so I like both the thick and the punch 412 cabinets. They sound really good to me. I noticed, so I can actually just show you here. If you've got an aux, I'll go to a couple of my presets. So actually, I just need to, I'm going to save this one so that I don't lose it. Just one sec here. Storing this preset. Okay, so I've made a bunch of presets here. So for the thick cabinet, if you can see this, sorry, I need to find the screen here. Okay, sorry, there, that looks better. That's what I'm using right now for a really good sort of straight up, oh, can't see the faders. So I'm using a 57 and ribbon 160 and the stereo condensers. 57 and the 160 are about at the same level, and that is the thick 412 cab. Okay, so if I go to the punch cab, I find it's a little brighter. So I'm doing the 57 off-axis mic, and the 121 is about at the same level. So a different ribbon mics, 57, 121, and then I got the condenser stereos again. I'm rolling off the lows on the ribbon mics. So there's two of my favorite setups. As far as the other cabinets go, I really like the Ace Top 212 Ace, which is the box one, and I like the 410 a lot, 410 basement style cabinet, and I really like the 112 Deluxe, and somebody's here. Excuse me. How about that? Amazon delivery on Sunday. So what this thing is I think, a converter box, because I have my aux here, and it's got a SPDIF digital output on it, which I want to use, but my Apollo Twin has a, so the output is like the RCA style, sorry, I don't know the exact term, but it's like the RCA style jack on the aux. It's that type of SPDIF digital out, and the one on the computer is a on my interface, my UA interface is Toslink. So I bought this little converter. Right? So one side has that style, and then the other side will have that style, Toslink, and that'll go to my interface, and then I'll be able to use the digital out on the aux. So, good thing to know on an aux, you might need one of these. Depending on what the digital in on your interface is, and of course the digital out on the aux is the SPDIF, looks like an RCA. Yeah, okay. Minisurf says again, what are the specs on my Mac? Am I missing things? I'm not sure. I get so confused if people ask questions twice or not. The specs, I already sort of, it's an i7 processor, I think it's an 8-core, my laptop, and a fast video card, and a SSD drive. Yeah. John says, what's my thoughts on sound between recorded tracks of the aux and Rivera Rock Crusher? Well, the difference being, the thing with the Rock Crusher is that with analog speaker simulation, you don't get a lot of air. You get a very direct, dry kind of, it's essentially an EQ, and you're rolling off top end and trying to simulate the sound of a cabinet. So it's much more real to me using digital speaker simulation, I will say that. But some people don't care, or they would want to use an external reverb data, or they want to use a delay or something like that. So for me, the IR thing is what I bond with. It's what I like. Any kind of like, be it Celestion IRs or Ownhammer or anything with some room mics mixed in and stuff. That's what I like, but some people seem to still like the analog way to go. So that's the main difference you can find in sound is less, you notice like a sort of less fizz and a little bit more of a natural thing with IRs than with the analog thing. The analog thing is very dry and direct and in your face, really in your face with no error, because of course it's just like an EQ that's attempting to do the kind of rough shaping that a roll off that a guitar speaker would. Paul says, I notice you have your amps pretty tightly packed on shelves in the studio. Do I need to cool them? I worry about that a little bit, like especially with my old Marshall, because it's really right up to the top, but I don't seem to have problems. There's a fair amount of space in the back of those amps, so I think it's okay. I have thought about it, though. Like, was this a good idea to build these so tight? Never had a problem, though. I've never had something fail or whatever in those racks. So David Ball. Oh, David, maybe this was your question. I think you were the fellow that said I didn't answer your question. You're taking group lessons and you're being taught to read music. Do you read or do I learn songs for tablature? And you're asking what benefits do I see for learning music, like how to read music? Well, it's a language, so it's like learning the written language and being able to communicate in musical, like, so in other words, instead of saying that your bandmate, like play the whatever the B flat on the 6th fret of the low E string or whatever. If you can't say that because you don't know the names of the notes on the neck or something, you've never learned the notes, just going, play the 6th fret on the low E. It's like, well, the keyboard player doesn't know what you're talking about if you say that, So the keyboard player is like needs to know the name of the note. So it's sort of like just like learning the language and being able to. That's the advantage to it, is that if somebody could write out in notation something and they could hand it to the keyboard player and they could hand it to you and you could both play that phrase, right? You would know what to do. So you've just got, it's like learning any language that's universal between all the instruments. It's only going to further your ability to communicate with other players and also your sort of a deeper understanding of what's going on musically. And that gets into all kinds of other areas of employment and all sorts of things, like you pretty much need to be able to read on a lot of, not a, it depends what you want to do. If you're in a rock band, it's not really necessary. It's like if you're doing, film sessions in LA, you need to be able to read. So it opens up doors, basically, is the thing. Tablature is cool for learning licks and stuff like that. It's not really it's not a method that any other type of musician is going to be able to read and understand, though. It's only for guitar players. So guitar is a difficult instrument to read on because to me it's like having a whole bunch of piano keyboards all laid on top of one another, every string, right? And the position can be weird, but if it doesn't seem to matter to really good readers. They can move it, they're less concerned with like position and things like that than they are with playing the right notes, and then they'll find the right position to play something where it sounds good, So I don't know. Does that answer your question? I would say it's really just it's about learning a language that allows you to communicate and understand the music on maybe a deeper level than if you can't read. All this said, I'm a terrible reader. I don't work on it, and it was drudgery to me always. But now I've become really interested in learning Japanese. So I'm like sitting and practicing hiragana and learning hiragana, which is the one Japanese character set. There's 3 different alphabets in Japanese. I've been working on it really hard every morning, sitting there writing it. And it wouldn't be unlike sitting there working on music, learning to read. And I know that if I applied myself in like 2 months, I would probably be like a decent reader. Like, okay, if I worked on it for an hour every morning or something. So there's no downside. Absolutely no downside. It just takes a little bit of time to get into it. And yeah. Okay. Deer Creek asked again about what point did my YouTube channel take off. I would say it really started around 2012 or 2013. That was really the point when I noticed it. It's like and also when it just sort of became a part of my career or whatever. as opposed to just something I sort of did as a hobby. Do I like Guns N' Roses? I saw Guns N' Roses in 1987, opening for the Cult, and nobody knew who they were. I remember that clearly. They were hanging out in the lobby after the gig. That's how nobody, they were the opening band. Hey, we're Guns N' Roses from LA. We're going to play some songs for you. It was like that when they came out. And they were cool. I loved them when they came out. I'll tell you that. When that record hit, I'm bored of that record now. You know, I really am. It's one record that came out in 1987, and it's been forever. And it's just like I wish there would, you know. Used to be bands put out records every year and stuff. That didn't happen. But it's a classic album. It's just if I don't ever need to hear, Paradise City or Sweet Child of Mine on classic rock radio ever again, basically. But it doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means like, Jesus, like it's been like 30 years of the same songs. At some point, anyway. Mixing on 7506 is Chris Ham. Those are Sony headphones, like these. Is killing me. That's what he says. These are 7506, the same headphones we're talking about. They are bright and clear. And they don't have a lot of bass, but that's one I know how those are supposed to sound. So I kind of mix on them a fair amount, and so they're not the most pleasant headphones, but I just got to know them and I'm comfortable. Mini headphones sound too dark to me, and I don't know what the hell is going on when it comes to mixing. Have you used the IRs on the Line 6 HX Helix, and can they replace a DI like the Ace or the Radial? Yeah, in theory, if you like the sound of them, some of the ones in the Line 6 ones are cool. I think I had personally, for me, I like the Celestion ones, so I would load those in because I could just use the IR loader, so I could have the ones I was really comfortable with. But I never explored the Line 6 ones too much beyond listening to them going, okay, and then like trying the Celestion ones and going, oh, I just prefer that. So that was my thing with it. Was they gave me the option of the IR loader, and it's like I think there's a thing. I'm sorry I don't have like more knowledge of certain things that people ask me about, certain pedals or certain speakers or excuse me, different things. But it's like there's a thing with like in my life as a working musician or whatever, you need to make decisions and just kind of move on, right? Like, so when you're doing a session or something, you're like, all right, let's plug in an amp. Does that one work? No, it doesn't sound so good. Let's try this one. Does that work? Yeah, that sounds better. Cool. Okay, dial it in, add a pedal maybe, and it's like, cool, let's track. And you cut the part, and then you move on. And it's like not a lot of like I don't try every single thing and like really get inside, like, because otherwise I just feel like I'd never get any work done. There's so many options, right? So for me, it was a process. Like when I first did the Helix demo, I went like, listen to the cabs, and I was like, okay, that sounds like that. And then I put in the Celestion IRs. I was like, oh, that's more to my liking. And I just went, okay, let's do that. And then I've done that ever since. And it really is like that. They could have come out with new ones since then that I would bond with way more. I don't know. And Steve says, oh, sometimes I get confused. Steve, is this the same question again? I'm just not sure. Same questions I'm seeing again. Aux Fractal or Sur Reactive Load for direct recording. They're all great once again. And all fantastic. I don't know what else to say beyond. They're all great load boxes that do the job of being a load box extremely well. And David again asking thoughts on reading music. That was I told you what I think. It's cool. Nothing wrong with being able to read. How much post-audio editing do I do with my intro songs? Very little, because I want you to hear the sound of the thing. I don't want to add a bunch of EQ and stuff. So sometimes I'll shelf below, like I'll take everything below 70 hertz on guitar tracks. If I've done like 3 or 4 guitar tracks and one's not poking through and it's important, and it's like, rather than just go, well, I can't EQ it because that wouldn't be the right thing to do, I sometimes will add a bit of like, 2K or 5K or whatever will make that lead part poke amongst the rhythm guitars. But I basically try really, really, really hard on the pedal video songs to not, like I try and get the sound of the source and dial in the pedal, dial in the whatever sound, and I don't do a hell of a lot of, I basically do some limiting at the end. with a little bit of bus compression, so just so that I'm not clipping, and that's it. Pretty raw, like the tracks that go down. And then when you hear the tracks soloed in the part after that, you know, you get the idea. I mean, it basically sounds the same. I'll just pan at center if I hadn't panned out in the mix or whatever. Instead, when I solo it, I'll pan at center generally, so that's in both speakers when you're listening to it. And then I just solo it, and then I bounce out just that one track. And so you're hearing the exact thing that was in the song, you know. Yeah, hope that makes sense. Okay, moving down. What part of my career would like to see grow now? Producing records or more sidekick kind of guitar stuff? Both, to tell you the truth. Producing records sure is fun, though. Producing, mixing, I love it. You know, I gotta do it all this stuff. And most of my friends that have been successful in this business, that I consider to be kind of like mentors, a little bit older than me and stuff, they've always done writing, producing, sideman stuff, put out their own records. You know, like I brought up Mark Goldenberg a couple weeks ago. He was really inspirational to me because he's like a real sort of walk softly and carry a big stick kind of guy, amazing musician, and always worked, always had a bunch of stuff going on, has written hit songs with like artists and stuff, but he's a behind the scenes guy that you don't really, you know, one of the best guitar players I've ever heard in my life, really. But I would look at people like that and go, that guy's got it figured out. He's throwing 100 things at the wall and seeing what sticks, you know, constantly like trying different things. So, yeah. Outside of music, what are my joys and hobbies? Traveling, I love. You know, I love just tripping around different cities, so that works well with my job. And right now, I'm really enjoying working on Japanese. Like, I've been spending a couple hours every day writing hiragana characters and trying to working on a couple different online courses and stuff. So that's been fun for me. Feels good to use that other part of my brain that, you know, doesn't have anything to do with, well, maybe it does have stuff to do with music. Like music and language, there's similarities there. But it's fun to apply myself to something else that isn't music for a minute. Just split it up a bit. What would I recommend for an all-in-one pedal? That's a good question. Boost, delay, and noise gate. I don't know one that has a noise gate, sorry, but for a boost, delay, and noise gate, I may have something coming that I've been working on. Not necessarily the noise gate part, but for ones that exist right now with a bunch of stuff built in, the Carl Martin ones are great. The Quattro, great pedal, like really good sounding overdrive, compressor, chorus, delay, all that stuff built in. Really nice all-in-one. T-Rex had one that was really cool. The Tech 21 stuff is good. Like I really like that Richie Kotzen pedal. They got some good tones out of that thing, and it had echo and drive and all that good stuff built in. So look at those few different ones. Have I tried the Fractal Reactive Load Box? Yes, it sounds good. Thumbs up. Okay. ISO boxes are kind of hard on speakers. They probably are because of the lack of air moving around in there. And I just don't like the tone. That's from Craig. Generally, it sounds boxy to me. You know, it's like if this is the speaker, you know, as it normally sounds, you close up that ISO box, and now the speaker sounds like that every time. It's just like this buildup of like 400 hertz, like low mids, and like, oh, underwhelmed. I bought one once and I returned it. You know, one of the ones that the box flips open. It's got the speaker mounted inside. I didn't like it at all. And then I tried the reactive load stuff in IRs, and I never looked back. Craig says the Rivera Silent Sister is great. I know it's supposed to have the labyrinth to kind of like, you know, reduce the airflow. I never tried that one, so maybe it's really good. The IR thing and the load box thing came so far that it's, you know, to me that's the way to go. Do you ever use parametric EQs to fine-tune presets with modelers? Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sure. You know, an EQ at the end can really be helpful. I think that's why, like on the Axe effects, sometimes they'll put that graphic right. I mean, there's like a graphic on the outputs right at the end, just so you can kind of fine-tune your overall thing. Do I think my song intros help my channel the most? That's from Deer Creek Audio. Yeah, it was David Cotai. I'll give him credit for. From Pigtronics and Supro now. He gave me the idea of putting the intro, this music up front in my videos. He goes, I like the songs you come up with. You should put them first. Don't talk, you know, like put the music up front. And I was like, that's probably a pretty good idea, and I started doing it, and it seemed to be really. If you look at YouTube demographics, the viewers fall off after the first minute or two. You know, it's just like people watch for a minute, right? We all do it. We watch for a minute. It's like, cool, you're into it, and then we all have ADD, and then you click off and go to something else. So to put the song up front, I think was a really, really good idea, because at least people have heard, you know, the music, they've heard the pedal, and they go, yeah, I heard that piece of gear. I only watched 30 seconds of the video, but I basically got the idea of what something sounded like. We didn't just listen to a guy go, hi, today I'm going to show you the so-and-so, and it's got a tone control and a, oh, you know what I mean? Like, we all get bored by that, I think. I do too, so I think it's cool to put music up front. Dave Cleveland says he appreciates me and my willingness to share insight into music and gear. All the best. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. David Ball. Dave, I answered your question. You were asking about reading, and I gave you an extensive answer. I'm not sure. David Ball wants to know, you were the fellow that was asking about reading, and I gave you a whole answer. So maybe I did it after you posted this, but says your questions are too simple for me. That's not true. It was an excellent question about reading music, and if I think it's important. Once again, to summarize, it's going to allow you to communicate with other musicians really well if you learn how to read, and it's also going to allow you to open up a whole world of possibilities as far as like working in things like film sessions, where you're going to get handed, you know, definitely not just charts, but you're going to be able to need to be able to read. So it's important for that. Having said that, if you're just in a rock band or whatever, I don't really think it's that necessary, but there's nothing wrong with learning, and it could definitely be beneficial no matter what. If for anything else, when you learn to read, you learn the names of the notes on the neck as well, which is really important, I think, as far as like, so you can start to know, like, especially if you know, if you start using things like the cage system or whatever for, you know, being able to visualize what's going on and maybe becoming a better improviser, then learning the names of the notes is, you know, learning the names of the notes on the neck and then also tying that in with reading music, it can only help, you know, reading rhythms, you know, it's just like learning a language. I hope that, David, I'm sorry if I didn't, if you jetted already or whatever, you're not here. Somebody please tell David that I answered his question. David says my image of you is being tainted. Okay, David, I gotta move on, but I hope that I gave you a sufficient answer to your question. I'm a fan of reading, even though I don't do it very often. How does the PT100 differ or compare in sound to the BE100? There's a ton of crossover there. And I played them both, and I actually had the second Marshall ever made, which was the precursor to the BE100. You know, I think there's a ton of crossover there. I think they're both terrific amps, and you know, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I wasn't a fan of Dave's amps. And when we were looking at the PT100 and the design and stuff, it's like, hey, I want some of that mojo in my amp, that sound. So there's a way we can go about it, you know, in our own original way, but that captures. I love the, you know, for instance, Dave, you know, is a really big fan of, I know when it comes to the old Marshalls, things like low filtering. So filtering in an amp, if it's a stiffer filtering, it can make the amp feel tighter, and if it's got more filtering in it, but it also has this effect on the feel. And so with the Marshalls and stuff like that, they're really like old school Marshall filtering. That kind of makes the amp a little bit more like it's more tactile and cooler to play. It just feels better, but on a scope, it doesn't look as like accurate or whatever. So it's like you know, basically, and the amp can sound a little looser too. So you can kind of get, it's like a balance of formula, getting some of that tightness back, but you don't want to script the feel of the amp and stuff by you know, over filtering. So I hope that makes sense. So it's like a balance. So anyway, certainly Dave's the Marshall and the BE, you know, I was influenced by that. I just love the sound of old Marshalls. So it was, you know, that was influential. Okay, moving down. Have I ever tried a Seriatone amp? I have not. Ichiro, the guitar player I play with in Japan, in Joshi Nagabuchi's band, he has one of the Seriatone. It's sort of like a copy of a 2-Rock or something. Sounds good. Yeah. Okay, moving along. Queen Lizzie said, what's the last non-signature piece of gear that blew me away besides the aux? That blew me away. I have to think about it for a minute. I have to think about it. Something I was really knocked out by. Let's see. Let's see. Origin 50 or 20 head. Somebody's asking. Oh, the Marshall mouth fellow is asking about would I pick an Origin 50 or 20? Probably the 20. Probably the small one. Seems like kind of a cool amp, actually. I would like to try one. Adam Stewart says, suggestion for Tim and Pete's show, interview legendary producers like Howard Willing. Did you see the one we did with Eddie Kramer? It's actually 3 episodes. We had to split it into 3 for various reasons I won't get into, but there's a great Eddie Kramer one. It was really fun, and well, just go check it out. But we did do that. That was the only producer we've done so far, and I would love to do more of that. You're right. IR's on, oh, it's the same question I already answered about the IRs on the Helix. Just going to keep moving down a little bit. Craig says, he's looking at a Sir Hedgehog. What are my thoughts? Can it cover a wide variety of Fender tones? Yes. Tweed, maybe not so much. Blackface, yes. It's, it's really dumbly. So it's like, it's got that great American kind of drive circuit in it. That's awesome. It's sort of fat sounding drive circuit. It's a great sounding amp. The Hedgehog is really, really good. It doesn't sound like a Marshall, but has great overdrive. So it's just a different thing. I dig it. Okay. How do you set up a delay for the Eddie rhythm sound, says Jason. I would use a dark kind of echoplexy kind of thing and do about 300 millisecond. That's what I would do. 300 millisecond, one slap back, like one repeat. You got to be careful with the mix knob. Great pedal for it is the Echoplex. I got one down here, the MXR version. Can sound really good. But yeah, 300 milliseconds is like the Ain't Talking About Love, and that sound. And it's not far off from that for On Fire. You know how the delay comes back. It's not 300, but it's close. So you just tweak the time knob a little bit. Let's see here. Farrah Petrucci says, how can we improve our phrasing? My phrasing's cool and like to solo like that one day. Please share my recommendations. Maybe learn some of Laurie Basilio's stuff. She's such a good phraser, and she's got a great lesson on Jam Track Central. So just go listen to her and check out some of her lessons and stuff. Because what phrasing she has. It's like she's singing on the guitar all the time, which is kind of what you want to do, I think. That, and just learn some Jeff Beck. Learn the solo to or learn, Because We've Ended as Lovers or something. It's just really focus on that. Or, David Gilmour. Great phrasers. Just go learn some solos. And before you know it, that stuff gets under your fingers and becomes part of your playing. What do I think about guitar work from bands like Radiohead, My Bloody Valentine, The Verve? I love it. I love The Verve, and I love My Bloody Valentine. In that record was, when that came out, it was like crazy sounding. It was so cool. I love it. I love all that stuff. One part of me, the kind of guitar anti-heroes that no one talks about when it comes to what folks on. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's from Manuel. I love that music, and I love that. I said one part of me wishes I moved to England and kind of got a band over there or whatever. But that whole aesthetic, I totally agree, is super cool. I really love Johnny Marr too. Greetings from Alhambra. That's Jose. Hey, I spent some time out there in the 90s. I used to live out kind of that way. It was Temple City, Pasadena. Working out that way. What player inspires me these days? Landau, Ian Thornley. Love both those guys. Let's see. Bandmates are going in-ear and backing tracks and just sucking the fun out of playing an inspiration. Any advice with that kind of thing? This is Corey Duke. I gave some with the in-ears thing, trying to play in stereo. If you can get a stereo thing going, it helps in the in-ears to make it more fun. Or maybe using an ISO, or not an ISO cabinet, excuse me, like a small cabinet, and just having that facing up at you or something, so even if you're on in-ears, you've got some feedback ability and stuff like that. Anything you can do to not lose that, magic interaction between the amp and the guitar, and you know, that's the big thing. Like you're saying, backing tracks and in-ears. It's like so not rock and roll, you know, not what we grew up with. So got to kind of try and preserve that stuff. Maybe just having a common sense discussion with them and saying, hey, we're sort of taking the fun out of this by making it super analytical and, you know, I don't know. Does other people's gear influence what I like to use? Once again, I've gone almost 2 hours now, but I'm going to jet here in a minute. But does other people's gear influence what I like to use? Yeah, sure. I mean, totally. When I see somebody like Tim Pierce doing something a certain way, or you know, last night Ian was talking about, he's got a new prototype fuzz pedal, and he was talking about running the Cocoa Boost into that, and it just does crazy random things that he loved. You know, things like that. You go, oh, I got to try that. I mean, all the time, definitely. Jambo says, any third installment on the Pedalboard plan? Yes, yes. And I will probably do that here, actually. I got to do a track for my record, and I'll probably, just thinking, probably do that. I'll probably do that here. Yeah. Let's see here. Jennifer's in Asbury Park. Says she's performing background vocals on a float at a St. Patty's Day parade, but listening to me as well. Wow, I'm honored. That's a lot going on at the same time. Okay, what do I think of the Runt 50? Good amp, good solid amp, solid gigging amp, at a nice price. Replacement pickups for a Mexican Telecaster. If you don't want to spend too much dough, you know, you go something like a Duncan, like that. I think that 5.2 is a really interesting idea, where it's got Alnico 2 for the top 2 strings and then Alnico 5 for the bottom strings. You might check that out. That basically what that means is there's different magnets for the bass strings than there is for the treble strings, and the magnets for the bass strings keep it snappy, and then the ones on the top 2 strings are Alnico 2, keeps it warmer. On a Tele, that can be a good thing. So maybe check that out. And there's a question again about the B100 and PT, which I answered. Definitely crossover there. Okay. All right, 2 more, and then I'm going to jet you guys. Any advice on a good solid-state power amp for a wet-dry-wet setup? I would do the... Oh, somebody's asking about the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 170. Could be great. I think I'm going to check one of those out pretty soon, actually. It's a good idea. I haven't tried it yet, though, so can't comment. I've been a big fan of the Matrix power amps for a long time. They're light, and they sound great, and they're tons of power, more than you could ever need. Any thoughts on Fishman pickups? Haven't tried them yet, but I've heard nothing but from, like, Steve Stevens told me these things sound amazing, and some other people. Friedman tried them and said, wow, they're really interesting. These are the Fluence pickups, very different design, but they have some great tones, evidently. I would like to give them a go. Let's see. Thoughts on Nags guitars? They make nice guitars. I like the Steve Stevens one I have very much. It's the only one I've tried, my Steve Stevens model. It's sparkle red. It looks badass. Why did they quit putting preamps in? This is from Bruzbo. Why did they quit putting preamps in Marshall at 50-watt Marshalls? I guess you're just saying, why don't they make amps like that anymore? Yeah, I don't know. I mean they still do, I guess. They still make the 1987X, right? You can still get that 50-watt Marshall. You know, the main thing with those old Marshalls is they weren't too complicated, I don't think. They were very sort of basic circuits, had a ton of gain built in the front end, and you know, you could hit a pedal if you needed more, and there's something pure about amps that are simple. I think it sounded good. Fuse says he has, I'm going to go really fast here. Fuse says he only has Fender, I'm going to do a bunch more because there's a shitload of questions here and I want to get to them. He only has Fender guitars, looking for a Les Paul. Do I think that a PAF pickup would be a good complement? You want to be close to the single coil sound. So are you talking about putting a PAF in a Strat? I would recommend the Thornbucker Plus. That's my pick. Still a different sound than the Gibson though. And there the chat just skipped to the end. So back up just a little bit and get to a few more things here, and chat window skipped around. Charles says Pete did a video on the Echoplex Eddie Van Halen thing. Yes, that's true. If you watch my video called Echo into Distortion, I think it's called, in my Tone Secrets playlist, I did a whole thing on getting a delay slapping back in front of the amp and how to do it right. And, yeah, but good place to start 300 milliseconds, one repeat with a dark delay. So Eric says he just realized where I was in the chat like 20 minutes ago. Yeah, they come in so fast and I get off on tangents talking about things, and then I get way behind. I don't know what the answer for that is. It needs to be 3 of me or something. Favorite non-music related questions. Sorry, I don't understand. Favorite non-music related question. I guess about other things I like to do or something besides music. Okay. When will the Pedalboard Part 3 video be online? Well, sometime within the next month I'll get it done. I haven't started it yet, but I will. I'll have to do it. Basically, I just want to record a track with the Pedalboard and really come up with some wacky sounds and then put it on my record. That's my plan. Make a video out of it and also put it on the album. Charles says he can't imagine playing without knowing the names of the notes and the scales and arpeggios that he used. Yeah, it's definitely, you're more informed when you understand that stuff, you know. Where do I have the dial and the Sir reactive load set when I use it with my DAW? Generally speaking, it's up 9 o'clock to it's never above noon. It's generally like 9, 10 o'clock, something like that. Okay. Yeah, Ian says guys get too frustrated about how long it takes you to get through so many questions. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, honestly. Maybe I'll just tell people, like, hey, if I haven't answered your question, I'm really sorry. I'm going, but I'm way back in the chat, and then people will understand. I don't mean to skip people or not pay. It's not that I'm not paying attention. It's just like there's 350 people here, which is awesome. I'm not complaining, but it just takes as long as it takes to kind of answer. Okay, any advice on getting a Fender Supersonic 60 sounding good, especially on the burn channel? I don't really know that amp. I'm sorry. Have I tried Wiz pickups? No. Best tubes for SL67. If you want to go with new production stuff, just good tested Chinese preamp tubes. And for output tubes, generally the Surge ship with the ARS branded JJs that seem to work fine. You might want to experiment with some different. Friedman, I believe, is using the EL34s now because he finds them more consistent, more reliable. We've had no problems like with my Sur amps with those, but Friedman ships a lot of amps, and he's moved to the EHs because he finds that they just work well in the field, and they do sound good, those tubes. So maybe you want to try those for old stuff. I mean, all bets are off. You could try to get some old. If you can find old Low-wattage Siemens or something like that, those sound really good for EL34s. And if you just want to try like some interesting stuff in the front end, the preamp slots, my favorite for the V1 slot in Marshalls is Amprex, Bugle Boy. I just love them. Many people like the Mullards. I like the Bugle Boy. Probably find like a tested, used but tested as new one for $80 or $100 or something, and try putting one of those in. On a budget, an RFT, they're cheaper. RFT 12AX7, they can sound really good in Marshalls. I believe there was stock tubes that came in Marshalls for a long time, like in the 70s, 80s. And then in the V3 position, the phase inverter, I like the long plate LPS Sovtech tube, which is a good modern long plate. It just sounds really good to me in the phase inverter position of a Marshall Plexus style amp. Just might give that a try. Okay. Let's see. Once again, I just want to say, in case you guys don't know, if I miss a question, it's certainly not intentional, but the way the chat window moves here on YouTube it's impossible, because it just, I'll be paging down, then all of a sudden it flies by and misses like 100 comments, and then I'm going back and trying to find it's just a glitch so that I can't help it. Try and do the best I can. Are the two Eventides on my board the same model? One is a Max, H9 Max or whatever, that's maxed out, and then the other one's just a normal one. Solo Freduco says, tell us about playing with Draco. I used to play with a guy named Robbie Draco Rosa, and he's a fellow from Puerto Rico. He's an amazing artist, and we had so much fun, and it was great touring Latin America and South America and stuff. It was incredible. Great music fans, great people. People really love music and art, and my memory of playing with him is very spontaneous gigs. He likes to switch it up and likes to be unpredictable, and he likes to have a good time. He just kind of likes to have a party on stage. So it was really, really fun. Okay. Ray says, you are selfless and inspirational in the quest to further playing guitar. Thanks, man. I just love guitar. It's really kind of selfish if you think about it. I just love talking about guitar, and I love living in that headspace all the time. So maybe I'm being selfish, really. Just doing what I want to do. How do you prepare your album tracks for mastering? What format do I upload to DistroKid 16-bit 44.1? Yeah. So to prepare albums for mastering, the main thing, if you're mixing a song and you want to put it out and you want to send it to mastering, don't slam it. So don't over compress and don't over limit. And I generally give the peak of the song is like a -3 or -5 or something. So give the mastering engineer somewhere to go with it is the main thing. So any kind of mastering plugins that you're using, if you use a little bit of bus compression, that's okay. But don't put a limiter on there, and just make sure that the levels are below, that's their job. That's the way I perceive it anyway. Now, when I'm doing stuff for YouTube and stuff, I do my fake mastering. I limit it, get it up to a good hot level and stuff. But if I'm doing a track to send to a mastering engineer, you want to not do that and let them do that last final. They've got, 50 grand worth of mastering equipment or whatever. They're going to run it through and make it sound great. So. And then, they'll generally send you back a wave that's 16-bit 44.1, and you can upload it to DistroKid like that. Okay, almost done here, folks. Why is guitar so addictive? Yeah, I know. I love that headspace. It is addictive. I don't know. Music's just fun. I don't feel any different about it than, that's Sonic Blue Strat. I don't feel any different about it than I did when I was 14. It's still really fun for me when I get lost in that. Just making music, you lose time and space and just get sucked into what sounds good, and it's really fun. That's interesting. I can highlight a comment while I answer. This might help you. Just click and drag. That's from our Metal Stage podcast. I'll try and figure that out. I'm not sure what you mean. I'm trying to do that right now, but I don't see it working. But anyway, what did I think of the? Thank you for the advice. I'll try and experiment with what you said. Do I think digital is the future? Well, yeah, we're already digital. We're digital right now. We're living in the digital realm. Certainly recording's gone that way. I don't know about amps and stuff like that, whether it'll, it's certainly a big part of it. What do I think of the internet meltdown over Mayer's new PRS? It's kind of funny. It's a Strat, but actually so I had a little DM exchange with Mayer this week about the Strat, and we didn't talk about any of that stuff. I just briefly congratulated him on his guitar. Said, congrats on the new signature model. He said, thanks, man. Feels really good. He said, it's not just another new guitar for the sake of a new guitar. It's really special. So that's what he said. He's obviously behind it, so likes it very much. That was his comment to me about it. Ever tour in Israel? Yes. I played in Israel in 2009 with Chris Cornell. Fantastic gig for about 7,000 people. It's on YouTube if you want to check it out. Just check out, search Chris Cornell 2009 Tel Aviv or something, and it was a great show. Had a lot of fun. And I was in Israel once when I was a kid too. We went to the West Bank and stuff too. Went to Bethlehem. I was like 14. Fascinating place. Okay, guys, I gotta go because I've been doing it 2 hours and 11 minutes. I gotta run. That's it for me today. Have I checked out the Universal Audio Aero interface? I haven't seen it. Looks cool for a small one. A little bit less expensive than an Apollo. It's great. I'm a big fan of the Universal stuff. They do good work. All right, guys. I hope I got to most of your questions, and I hope I didn't bum people out by missing some or anything like that. Apologies. All right, y'alls. Have a great rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you here next week. Got videos coming this week for, I think, the tonal recall, maybe an orange fuzz. Maybe I'll try and get the radar done this week. Oh, and Fender pedals. That's coming too. I'm going to do all the Fender pedals. So I'll try and do a cool track with those this week and get it all up. Got to go to work now. All right. You guys, thanks for being awesome. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Sunday. Have a good rest of your day.